Hello, Weather Watchers, and welcome to Astro Weatherman, where we study how the planets in our solar system affect weather patterns here on the Earth, an ancient science known as astrometeorology, the astrology of weather. All right, so this is my first channel. I hope you guys all will find the content I'm going to be putting on fascinating and useful at the same time. It's going to be a very different kind of weather forecasting, very different than the types that you're used to. But I'm sure you guys will all catch on pretty quick. In future videos, maybe we will put out videos where we're going to be explaining the techniques and how they work. But in the meantime, let's just get right into how the planets are affecting the weather. This episode will be focusing on the fall 2022 forecast. Now, it's a little late in the season. It took a little while to get all this production going, but we're here. So consider this to be a video more for educational purposes and an introduction in terms of how astrometeorology or how the planets are affecting weather in regions. And you can kind of look back into the fall 2022 season wherever you are in North America to see how accurate that this system is. And we are going to be focusing on North America, specifically Canada, the United States, and Mexico. All right, so without further ado, let's get started and see how the planets are affecting the weather around North America for fall 2022. Okay, so we are going to begin with Canada and Western Canada specifically. And we're going to start with BC, British Columbia. And what you're going to see here, first off, I'm going to start off with this brief introduction as to how this whole system sort of kind of works. And we'll get into, more detail in future videos. And so what you're going to see here are these symbols. Okay, now these symbols represent planets. They come with different color schemes, and this is showing us how and where the planets are actually affecting specific geographic regions here on the Earth. Okay, and of course, this is going to give us lots of information in terms of weather patterns. So how this works is you have two major players when it comes to weather. You have a major and a minor. Okay, so a major planet and a minor planet. The major planet is going to be giving us information as to the major weather pattern that's going to be affecting the region. The minor planet is going to give us sort of an indicator as to, smaller weather systems that will come and go, like little windows in the midst of the greater weather pattern. All right, so we're going to actually be focusing a lot more on the major planet in specific regions. Now we're going to give it two color schemes here, two color schemes. One planet is going to represent, or we're going to give the color green for better weather, a planet that gives high pressure systems, more sunshine, warmer weather, just generally more pleasant conditions. And then we're going to give a red color scheme for a planet that is going to give more low pressure systems, instability, heavier moisture, heavier winds, generally more unpleasant weather. All right. So green is good weather, red is bad weather. And we're going to give a little check mark for the positive weather zones and a little X, a little red X for the not great weather zones or the more difficult weather zones. All right, so let's get started. And this was created by a specific software that is called astrocartography or solar maps. And I'll put the links down below for those of you that are interested in looking at the specific software and where you can acquire it. All right, so let's get started with the weather. That's it for the little lesson portion of it. All right, so we're going to begin with this planet down here. All right, now this guy is Saturn, a very notoriously bad weather planet. And we're going to give him two red circles here, which means he's going to be the major player for a good chunk of British Columbia, especially from mid to southern BC. And Saturn loves to bring really low pressure systems, um, colder temperatures, a lot of storm systems. You're going to see a lot more storms happening during the season than is usual. You're going to see one positive weather planet here, which is Mars. So there's going to be a period of the season, or periods with little windows. We're going to see warmer weather, nicer weather that is going to come through. That'll give you some breaks from the more challenging weather conditions. But overall, most of BC is not looking so great in terms of weather for the fall. We also see a negative weather planet over here, and that is the planet Pluto. Now, Pluto traditionally will bring colder weather, wetter weather, so more moisture and more storm systems in general. So what we're going to do is we're going to highlight basically a province, and the line that you're going to see, the color is going to indicate whether this is going to be a positive weather region or more of a negative weather region. And unfortunately for BC, you're going to be red stamped with a negative weather region. It's going to be a more difficult season for you with colder temperatures overall and higher levels of moisture. All right, so let's get going to Alberta, shall we? Now, Alberta, what we have here for you guys specifically is actually going to be different from BC, generally speaking. Okay, now we're going to give you two green lines for this planet, and that one is Mercury. Now, Mercury is typically drier. Now, and normally it's colder. The thing is with Mercury right now during the time of the solar ingress, which we'll discuss in future videos. But at the start of the fall season, Mercury was in retrograde, which basically means a planet, its energy goes in reverse. So so if Mercury is cold, it's not as cold. So it's going to be more seasonable, and it will be dry, or drier. Here's the however, and here's the caveat to this, though. This planet down here is the moon, and the moon is a negative weather planet bringing colder temperatures, high amounts of moisture, but it's the minor. So I think what's going to happen for Alberta overall, and I think in southern Alberta specifically, and we're going to highlight the regions here in just a minute. I think what's going to happen here, well, let's just highlight them right now, shall we? So it gives you a bit of a visual as to what's going on. I think the more positive energy or weather for Alberta is going to be sort of halfway, because there's another player to the north, and that's Saturn. And Saturn, again, is a bad weather planet. So I think what's going to happen here, oops, sorry, my bad. That's not supposed to be an X. It's supposed to be a check mark, more of a positive weather influence from mid to southern Alberta. And so I think what's going to happen here is you're going to see overall, I think you're going to have a season where the temperatures are overall going to be seasonable temperatures, but you're going to have some cold snaps with the moon, some really cold snaps, but they're not going to be, they're going to be the exception and not the norm. So overall, I think seasonable weather with cold snaps, and I think generally with one very dry planet and some moisture with the moon, I think you're going to have, in terms of moisture, an average season of moisture, somewhere along the lines of near normal levels of moisture. So not too dry, but not too wet. All right. But when the when the snow does come, it'll come pretty heavy at time, in very short spurts. Now in the north, what we see here is Saturn. And Saturn, this guy right here. And Saturn is a very stormy, cold planet. And it is going to affect the northern regions of Alberta. Okay. So I think the north is going to be a very different weather story. I think that they're going to have a lot more moisture than normal. I think they're going to be colder than normal. And with a lot more storm systems affecting them. So there you go, Alberta. That's your map. All right. So let's go to Saskatchewan. All right, Saskatchewan, you got a little bit of a mess of planets going on. But all in all, what we see happening is that a couple of players here. You got Venus and Neptune. Neptune being the bigger, more major influence. And you got a double red energy here, which indicates overall Neptune, both Neptune and Venus love to bring moisture. So heavier moisture into an area. Neptune loves to bring the temperatures down. So I think it's going to be cooler than average with higher levels of moisture. And I think now we have a couple of good weather planets here with the Sun and Jupiter, but they're going to be minor compared. So you're going to have your, warm breaks, and some nice fall days. But all in all, unfortunately, I'm going to have to red zone you, Saskatchewan, for the season we see. It's just going to be a more of a difficult season overall. Okay. So there you go. I think lower than average temperatures, higher levels of moisture. And all right, let's move on to Manitoba. All right. So Manitoba, you're under the influence of an interesting planet up here, Uranus. Now, normally Uranus will give Uranus sort of a red flag, because it brings a lot of instability to weather patterns. Highly unpredictable, brings storm systems. Now, this is the weird thing with Uranus. Uranus can bring crystal clear blue skies, beautiful weather, and then boom, a blazing blizzard. And then it's clear, beautiful again, and then you get hit by a massive dump of snow. It brings a lot of instability to the weather pattern, and that's going to be your major weather system, unfortunately, for this season. It brings a lot more cold. Very notorious Uranus is for extreme cold or extremes in terms of all kinds of weather. But normally Uranus is drier than normal with scattered pockets of heavy moisture. So overall picture, I think you guys are going to be drier than normal, but don't be surprised if you get your big dumps of snow here and there, okay? And big dumps of moisture. This green planet down here that we're highlighting with a green circle is Jupiter. So it's going to bring some nice fall days. Jupiter brings warmth and brings some nice sunny breaks, drier weather, but it's the exception and not the norm in this case. So unfortunately, Manitoba, I'm gonna have to red flag you as well. So you guys are gonna be in a more challenging weather pattern overall for the fall season. All right, so I think colder than normal, drier than normal overall, with scattered snow, but when they do happen, they could come in heavy doses. So don't be surprised if there's the occasional blizzard that goes through and some really inclement weather. And then all of a sudden it gets sunny and nice, and then you get hit again. So get ready for a roller coaster this season. All right, let's go to Ontario. Ontario, what's happening with you guys? Well, you guys are going to be interesting because, well, I guess if you want to call it interesting, because you're getting hit with some challenging weather patterns here. We're going to give this guy up here's Pluto, double red, and Pluto brings cold and snow. So for this season, you got the minor here. In this case, Uranus is minor, cold. So two cold planets, and one is higher in moisture. So I think you're going to receive about an average amount of moisture. Well, let me rephrase that because Uranus is involved. I think when you're going to get hit with moisture, it's going to be heavy at times. I think, unfortunately, the majority of Ontario, you guys, I'm just going to have to, give you guys a big red zone for the weather because it's just going to be a very challenging season of weather. So, in summary, you guys are going to have colder than normal with higher levels of moisture on average. All right, so it might be a challenging season, Ontario. Quebec. All right, so Quebec, big province. We're not going to be able to cover the whole thing, but we have a couple planets that will cover, that will just give the indications for the Quebec weather. All right. Now, the major player here is going to be Pluto for Quebec. And again, Pluto being the challenging planet, you've got Mars on this end, and he's bringing some nice weather to the system. Sorry, to the province. But all in all, Quebec, I think you're gonna be redlined. You guys are gonna have a lot more challenging weather, cold with Pluto, higher moisture with Pluto, odd sunny warm breaks, I guess you could say, with Mars. Um, so you'll get some pockets of relief from the season, but overall, colder, wetter, a lot more snow than average, with higher than normal storm systems. Okay, so unfortunately, you guys are not going to have a great fall either. Again, some nice breaks, but overall, challenging. Maritimes. Okay, Maritimes, what do we have going with you? Not great either. So most of Canada is not looking great this fall season. Like, seriously, what is going on? Well, the major planet governing over you guys this season is going to be Saturn, and he's got a double red right there. So Saturn is the planet of storms. So for the fall season, expect some heavy storm systems to come through. Colder and heavier moisture. Straight up. Then you have a little bit of Mars gonna happen in here. Mars is nice and green. It can bring some, pockets of relief with the occasional weeks that are warmer and drier. But overall, unfortunately, you guys in the Maritimes, I gotta give you a big old red, uh, some big old red lines because overall the season is going to be very challenging on average. All right, so prepare for that. Colder, heavier snow, moisture, more storm systems with the odd weeks where you could have a few breaks in between. All right, there you go. All right. So that is the weather for Canada for the fall of 2022. So let's go on to see the good old US of A and see how the planets are affecting them this fall season. Okay, USA, let's get this weather forecast started, shall we? We're going to begin on the west coast of the United States. And we're going to see the dominant player, especially to the southwestern areas. This is Mars, and we're going to give it two green lines. So that's going to be some very positive, warm, and drier weather overall. Now we have another planet here. We're going to give a red line. That's the moon, but it's minor compared to Mars. The moon brings colder and wetter weather. Towards the east, we have Venus here, and that one is also, we're going to give it a red, milder, but brings plenty of moisture, but it's the minor planet. It's not the stronger one. Mars is. So how are we going to color these zones? All right. Well, southwestern areas I think we can safely say we're going to give you guys a nice green line, which for this type of weather forecasting, um, we're basically means weather, good weather, positive weather, high pressure weather, more days that are positive than negative for sure. So this zone, because of Mars, is going to have higher than normal temperatures, drier than normal throughout the season, with occasional periods of scattered showers or rain that will happen. So don't be surprised. Moving up north, we have another planet, and this one is going to dominate the north. Cold, stormy, low pressure uh, planet Saturn. And so a whole different ball game when it comes to weather patterns in northwestern US. Now you guys are going to be under the red zone. So this is, of course, weather that's not great. So I think what you guys are going to expect, thanks to good old Saturn, much colder temperatures, lots of low pressure systems. It's the planet of storms. So there's going to be some strong storm systems that will hit. Now, it can bring plenty of rain, and especially towards west coast regions, and snow inland or higher elevations. So Mars, um, even though Mars is all the way down here, its line does cross to the north as well. So that means you guys are going to have some breaks from the bad weather, um, bringing some nice fall days, bringing warmer and sunnier conditions. But Saturn is going to be dominant. So overall, it's going to be a difficult season of weather. Okay, next on the list, let's move it across, shall we? Here we go. Now, this is going to be a little bit of a mess because it's almost like this is a weather divide happening in the States. And so there's going to be some very tight weather corridors. So the ones that we're looking at here, Neptune and Venus combination. Now, these two are tag teaming, with Neptune being the strongest of the two. And this group loves to bring cooler temperatures, especially with Neptune, lots of moisture, um, and the such. Now, we do have a couple of good weather planets here, but they're the minor. That's Mercury, and this is the Sun. And so there will be some sunny days, some really nice fall weather that will give a break from the colder, cloudier, and wetter weather. So where does the red zone extend? There's going to be a bit of oops, sorry, wrong line, a bit of a dividing line here. So it's almost like this corridor, roughly, that's going to go, and it seems to be the corridor of the Rocky Mountains. So where the Rocky Mountains, and of course we know the Rockies, especially, but any mountainous region, but especially the Rockies, their weather systems are very unpredictable, highly changeable, and can be very erratic. So overall, I think that a region is going to have cooler temperatures and higher moisture. All right. But then to the west, we have another interesting story happening. And this time we have a dominant good weather planet, Jupiter. All right. Now, Jupiter is going to give some nice weather wherever it extends to. And in this case, there's a dividing line here. Okay. So right about from here, pretty much until about there. And um, Jupiter loves to bring warmer temperatures, drier conditions, not much moisture at all. Don't be surprised if there might be a little bit of moisture, but it won't amount to too much. So it's almost like there's a dividing line there in the Rockies where weather systems will generally sort of clash or separate. But otherwise, I think you guys are going to have a very nice fall season overall. Um, the sun is the minor here, which will also give drier, sunnier, warmer conditions. So between Jupiter and sun, nice weather. So I guess enjoy that um, if you're in that corridor. Um, All right. So now let's move on to um now look at that. The Midwest to all the way to the east. Hmm. I just have to take a quick look here because the dominant, that's Saturn with a little bit of Mars to the. So basically, this is going to be challenging. All right. So what do we mean by challenging? Well, let's get started. Now we have one good weather planet here, and that is Jupiter. But where it was the major in that little corridor, it's going to be the minor player here. All right. It's not going to give the as much nice weather um, as you hope. We have a minor dominant planet. Sorry, minor dominant. You have a minor bad weather planet here, and then you have a major bad weather planet here. So that's dominant. So Pluto is going to be the one that's dominant here. This black line extends here. And so basically, this is going to cover like this entire region here, okay? Um, so yeah, this is all under the red zone. So the red zone of not great weather. Pluto will be dominant, and Pluto will definitely lower the temperatures, bring a lot of moisture, storm systems. So there's going to be some pretty heavy storms that are going to be hitting this. Snow to the north, maybe heavy rain to the south. Um, Jupiter, however, will bring some nice sunny days and warmer weather, but it will be the exception and not the norm. It'll give you some brief respites from the more challenging weather. So there will be some breaks, but overall, get ready for some storms. And it can be very intense especially with Uranus hovering up here. Um, the fear is when Uranus, and Pluto get together, tornadoes can form, especially in season, but this is out of tornado season, so I wouldn't be surprised if some tornadoes could potentially form in the southern regions, especially. But, anyways, I think wetter, colder, and with higher than average storm systems with occasional um, breaks from all of that. So, there you go. So, prep for that. Next, we go east. And northeast, not looking great either. Now we've got a couple of bad weather planets, unfortunately. And the one that's still going to be dominant up here is Pluto. Um, we've got Uranus, which is also not great. And affecting way off the coast here is actually Saturn. And it's not going to be dominant in this case. We have one little good weather planet up here, which is Mars. Um, all right. So what color do you guys get for your weather? So basically red. Unfortunately, it's a heavy weather pattern that we're seeing for the northeastern regions. Um, Storms, a lot more than normal, lower pressure, colder temperatures, and a lot of rain and even snow, heavy snow. In north, especially here, what is a bit concerning, in the Buffalo region, New York region, because this is where Uranus and Pluto converge. Um, and you can see that right here where, oops, sorry, the wrong line, where this convergence right here happens. That could bring some heavy lake effect snow. To that area. So be careful with that for sure. So all in all, you guys get red flagged for weather. It's going to be tough. Colder, a lot of moisture, a lot of snow, and a lot more storm systems than usual. Now Mars is hovering off the edge, which will kind of give this aura of you'll have again some good weather breaks in between, but let's to give you some sunnier, nicer fall weather. Again, exception and not the norm. All right, so there you go, folks. That is the US of A. And overall, it's looking like it's going to be a tough season of weather, other than a nice pocket of weather in the southwest, and maybe down just around the eastern edge of the Rockies. Other than that, most of the country is going to see a lot of challenging fall weather this 2022 season. Okay, let's check out Mexico. Okay, Mexico. Let's see what the planets are doing to your weather. All right, so we're going to start up here in the upper northwest region of Mexico. And we see Mars, this sky right down here, which we're going to give two green circles to, which implies very positive weather overall, warmer, drier, with many sunny days in general. We do have one more negative weather system with Venus down here, as Venus does like to bring a little bit of moisture every once in a while. So I think overall, this section of Mexico, which will go from here pretty much through this Venus line, so the Baja Peninsula region, you guys are going to have generally a nicer season of fall weather with lots of warmth. Could be very hot, drier than normal, with scattered showers. With Venus there, we might even see normal seasonable amounts of moisture, but generally speaking, I think it's going to be very warm, beautiful weather for most of the season, with the odd shower that will cross through. All right. So let's go to, excuse me, the next grouping of planets here. And here we have Neptune, actually, that's going to be a player. And we've got Neptune as having two red circles because it's going to be not only the major planet involved, but it's going to bring some more challenging weather. Neptune loves to bring cooler temperatures, more in the way of moisture, but it's going to affect a very limited and tight region. We have some positive weather planets here in both. This is Mercury, and this one is the Sun, but they're going to be minor in comparison to Neptune. So I think what we're going to do here is we're going to give this region more of a bit of a, you know, generally cooler, generally cloudier, and with higher amounts of moisture. Now, sometimes with Neptune, it's a little challenging because Neptune can bring odd weather events. He likes to bring mists, fog, anything that can obscure the sky. And so at the end of the day, it might not be rain, it might just be higher amounts of, for example, mistier, cloudier, or even smokier days. Because in this region, especially if it's drier, Neptune can bring in, heavier amounts of smog to hazy conditions. But, normally Neptune will bring, um, you know, higher amounts of moisture. So that region, I think, is going to have a little bit more of a challenging weather period for the season. Next, we have another section here that's going to be a bit tight, but generally is going to be bringing a lot more positive weather. So down here we have the sun. Oh, let me redo that. I kind of blocked it there a bit. There we go. That's the sun, and we give one positive green mark. And the major player here is Jupiter. Now we're going to give it 2 greens. That's the major. And this will bring overall, both the sun and Jupiter bring warmer temperatures, hot temperatures, and very little in the way of moisture. So if these are drought prone regions, um, you can expect it to get even worse. So not good if you want moisture, all right? But when we look at just the overall weather conditions, it is more positive in terms of you have very little rain or if any, hot temperatures and lots of sunny days. Again, so it could be beautiful weather, but bad if you need rain, if you need moisture, then that region can suffer that way. So just watch for that. All right. So now we're going to move further east. Now, this is going to be an interesting section to deal with because we have one very positive weather planet here, and that's going to be Jupiter. And he brings nice, really positive weather. Problem with Jupiter is it's the minor player in this system because here we have Pluto, and Pluto brings more challenging weather overall to this entire region. But look at how far away Pluto is look at how far away Pluto is from this region. So its energy is going to get weaker the further west you go, even though it is dominant. So we're going to see the aura, if you will, of Jupiter extend a little bit further than normal. So what we can say then is this. So Jupiter is going to give, more positive, warmer, drier weather in general. But it will extend just about to around this area here, okay? And here you can expect much warmer than average temperatures, drier conditions, and many beautiful weather days. But then this area uh, of Mexico, pretty much from the Yucatan Peninsula all the way down to the southwestern tip, you're going to see Pluto's energy be very active. And that's going to bring cooler than normal temperatures for the regions, lots of rain, lots of moisture, and a lot of cloudier days. So you will have some nice weather influence from Jupiter a little bit, so you're going to have some nice weather days in between, some nice weather breaks, but overall, I think you guys are going to get a lot of rain down there and cooler than average temperatures overall. And with Pluto, it can bring higher than average thunderstorms. So just be aware of that. All right. So there you go. That is the forecast for Mexico. Okay, very good. So that's all for this episode. Stay tuned. We're going to be coming out with weekly episodes, weekly weather forecasts, by looking at the phases of the moon and how each lunar phase creates a shift to weather patterns across the world. All right, so that will be on a weekly basis, and we'll be giving the winter 2022-23 forecast coming up in the next few weeks. Please hit the like button if you enjoyed or found this, at the very least, different and interesting, and subscribe if you would like notifications as to when every forecast will be coming out. All right. Thank you all for watching.